We're getting close. I'm sure of it.
From my youth, and the glistening crimson on fields of white.
To my mother. Way smarter than I gave her credit for.
Perhaps we should find a random stranger to murder. Practice does make perfect. There is
Look at this
murder
place.
in the air.
This has to be it.
I
I
can
knew she was
taste
studying
it.
necromancy. I mean, she taught me everything I know. But I had no idea she had a setup like this. Look at all this. She must have spent years collecting these components. And what's this thing? I'm not sure about this circle, but it's obviously something. Let's take a look around. There has to be something here that tells us where she's gone. My mother was meticulous about her research. If we can find her notes, there might be some hints in there.
Matthew Bellamont and the great treachery of Jaden Hall. Killer Boy's mother and vengeance.
Not that I ever saw.
Festers
My
in
mother
the
had a bit of a
sun.
thing for magical constructs. Not what you're thinking. She just found them fascinating. Not that I ever saw. My mother had a bit of a thing for magical constructs. I had no idea her laboratory even existed. She had an alchemy set up in her drawing room,
I was
but nothing
but
that even
a
comes close to
speaker
what's
for the
here.
Black Hand, but you
Looking at the equipment and materials, it looks like she was trying to advance her necromancy.
no higher honor.
I don't know. Certainly not longevity. Kind of a waste of time for a vampire. There's not a whole lot to tell. You've already seen my father's obsession. My mother's not a whole lot better,
Dread
but
Father
you'll see that
works
soon
through
enough.
me, and his work has just
My father-
begun.
No, not really. I did spend a lot of time with my mother, but she saw me more like a protege than a daughter. What about you? What were your parents like?
My listener.
I know how that feels. I mean, I know it isn't the same thing, but I was a pretty lonely child myself.
Perhaps we should
Not as
find
much.
a random
Let's,
stranger to murder.
Let's just keep going.
Practice does make perfect. Your enemies will soon know the wrath of Sithis. Have you heard the tale of Matthew Bellamont and the great treachery of Jaden Hall? Killer Boy's mother and vengeance festers in the sun. I remember Skyrim from my youth, and the glistening crimson on fields of white. I grow restless, as does my blade. Lead, and I will follow, child of darkness. The dread Father works through me, and his work has just begun.
Any luck yet? You did? Let me see them. I only know what she told me. She had a theory about soul gems, that the souls inside of them don't just vanish when they're used. They end up in the soul cairn. The soul cairn is home to very powerful beings. Necromancers send them souls and receive powers of their own in return. My mother spent a lot of time trying to contact them directly, to travel to the soul cairn itself. That circle in the center of the room is definitely some type of portal. If I'm reading this right, there's a formula here that should give us safe passage into the soul cairn.
But you have been named listener.
A handful of soul gem shards, some finely ground bone meal, a good bit of purified void salts. Ah, damn it. We're also going to need a sample of her blood, which, if we could get that, we wouldn't even be trying to do this in the first place. Not bad. We'd better hope that's good enough. Mistakes with these kind of portals can be gruesome. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get started. Oh, good. Well then, let's head over to the portal vessel and I'll do the rest.
My blade is yours. Perhaps we should find a random stranger to murder. Practice does make perfect.
Then the rest is up to me. Are you ready to go? I'm not entirely sure what this thing is going to do when I add my blood.
Savior of the Dark Brotherhood.
Of course. What is it?
The listener.
I've been asking myself the same thing since we came back to the castle. She was so sure of what we did to my father. I couldn't help but go along with her. I never thought of the cost.
My listener.
Possibly. I guess even a vampire mother is still a mother. She worried about me. About all of us. But she wanted to get me as far away from my father as possible before he really went over the edge.
Follow, child.
Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. I just didn't expect anyone to care how I felt about her. Thank you. Are we ready then? All right, here goes. Ancestors. Incredible.
What prey awaits us?
end this misery.
Beware the dragon Dunavir, destroyer of souls and harbinger of fallen.
Wait for you!
You must help me find my Arvak. He doesn't deserve to be in a place like this.
And the great treachery of Jaden Hall.
Arvak, my horse. We came to this horrible place together. We were attacked by monsters, so I told him to run. Please, he's such a loyal creature, and he's been running for so long. You have to save him. A place like this will change you. Arvak? Arvak! Where are you? Arvak, please come back! Come back!
And I will follow, child of darkness.
I thought death was a release, not an eternity of torment.
One day, you will serve our dread father, as I do now.
Who's there?
All hail the savior of the Dark Brotherhood. All hail the listener. Lead, and I will follow, child
Mother?
of
Mother?
darkness.
Serana? Is it really you? I can't believe it. How do we get inside? We have to talk.
Serana, what are you doing here? Where's your father?
He doesn't know we're here. I don't have time to explain.
I must have failed. Harkon's found a way to decipher the prophecy, hasn't he?
No, you've got it all wrong. We're here to complete the prophecy our way, not his.
Wait a minute. You brought a stranger here? Have you lost your mind?
No, you don't...
You, come forward. I would speak with you. So how has it come to pass that a vampire of mixed blood is in the company of my daughter. Safe? You call bringing her here safe? Has she explained nothing to you? Serana has sacrificed everything to prevent Harkon from completing the prophecy. I would have expected her to explain that to you. You think I'd have the audacity to place my own daughter in that tomb for the protection of her Elder Scroll alone? The scrolls are merely a means to an end. The key to the tyranny of the sun is Serana herself. When I fled Castle Volkihar, I fled with 2 Elder Scrolls. The scroll I presume you found with Serana speaks of Ariel and his arcane weapon, Ariel's bow. The second scroll declares that the blood of Cold Harbor's daughter will blind the eye of the dragon. Like myself, Serana was a human once. We were devout followers of Lord Molig Bal. Tradition dictates the females be offered to Molig Bal on his summoning day. Few survive the ordeal. Those that do emerge as a pure-blooded vampire. We call such confluences the Daughters of Cold Harbor. Now you're beginning to see why I wanted to protect Serana, and why I've kept the other Elder Scroll as far from her as possible. If Harkon obtained Ariel's bow, and Serana's blood was used to taint the weapon, the tyranny of the sun would be complete. In his eyes, she'd be dying for the good of all vampires.
What prey?
And how exactly do you plan on completing the prophecy without the death of my daughter? Have you been listening to me? Like Serana, I'm a pure-blooded vampire. My presence on Tamriel is as much of a danger as hers. You care nothing for Serana, or our plight. You see the tyranny of the sun as your chance at deification. And like Harkon, you won't hesitate to destroy anything that stands in your path. Serana? The stranger may call himself a vampire, but he knows nothing of our struggle. Why should I entrust you to him?
This
Your
stranger
enemies
has done
will
more for
soon
me in the
know
brief time I've
the
known you than you've done in
wrath of
centuries.
Siddis.
How dare you? I gave up everything I cared about to protect you from that fanatic you call a father.
Yes, he's a fanatic. He's changed. But he's still my father. Why can't you understand how that makes me feel?
One day, you
If you
will
only
serve our
open your
great
eyes the
father,
moment your
as
father
I
discovers your role
do
in the
now.
prophecy, that he needs your blood, you'll be in terrible danger.
So to protect me, you decided to shut me away from everything I cared about. You never asked me if hiding me in that tomb was the best course of action. You just expected me to follow you
I
blindly.
remember Skyrim
Both of you were
from
obsessed
my
with your own
youth,
paths.
and the
Your
glistening
motivations
crimson
might have been different,
on
but in the end,
fields of
I'm
voice.
still just a pawn to you too. I want us to be a family again. But I don't know if we can ever have that. Maybe we don't deserve that kind of happiness. Maybe it isn't for us. But we have to stop him before he goes too far.
Have you
And to
heard
do
the
that, we
tale
need the Elder
of
Scroll.
Matthew Bellamont and the great treachery of Jaden Hall?
See, I've allowed my
Culebor's
hatred of your
mother,
father to
and
estrange us.
vengeance festers in the sun.
If you want the Elder Scroll, it's yours. Your intentions are still somewhat unclear to me. But for Serana's sake, I'll assist you in any way that I can. Yes, I've kept it safely secured here ever since I was imprisoned. Fortunately, you're in a position to breach the barrier that surrounds these ruins. You need to locate the tallest of the rocky spires that surround these ruins. At their bases, the barrier's energy is being drawn from unfortunate souls that have been exiled here. Destroy the keepers that are tending them, and it should bring the barrier down.
I grow restless, as does
One
my
more
blade.
word of warning. There's a dragon that calls itself Durnevere roaming the cairn. Be wary of him. The Ideal Masters have charged him with overseeing the keepers, and will undoubtedly intervene if you're perceived as a threat.
We are bonded
As you've been
now,
traveling in the Soul Cairn,
and
your
I
body has become attuned to it.
through the powers.
Let's just say a tiny part of you rubbed off on it, and in its place, a bit of the Soul Cairn filled the void. You should find no difficulty using the portal any longer. Harkon's vision is a world plunged in eternal darkness, where the vampire can flourish, and never again fear the tyranny of the sun. What he fails to realize is how much attention would be called to our kind if the prophecy came to fruition. If eternal night fell, there are many who wouldn't stand for it. They would raise armies in attempts to return things to normal. The order of the day would be our destruction, until every last vampire was hunted down and eliminated. I do. It's how the vampire has survived for millennia, and the only way we can continue to survive in the future. When I entered the Soul Cairn, I had intended to strike a bargain with the Ideal Masters, the custodians of this place.
And I will follow, child.
I requested refuge in the Soul Cairn, and in exchange, I would provide the Ideal Masters the souls that they craved. If I had foreseen the value they placed on my own soul, I would never have come here. The Ideal Masters unleashed their keepers and sent them to destroy me.
Again.
Fortunately, I was able to hold them at bay and retreat into these ruins. Unfortunately, yes. Since the keepers weren't able to claim my soul, they had their minions construct a barrier that I'd never be able to breach.
Perhaps we should find a random stranger.
Time has very little meaning to me.
Practice does.
Consequently, it has little meaning to the Ideal Masters as well. I suppose you could call this the ultimate waiting game, each watching the other to see which will give in. I know very little about them. They're mystic entities that lord over the Soul Cairn, controlling every aspect from its fabric to its appearance.
Taste it.
Well, some necromancers believe they are the crystalline structures dotting the Soul Cairn. I believe there's more to it than that. I think they transcend what we perceive as a physical form. Perhaps they were once corporeal beings, but they've obviously reached a point where they no longer require a tangible presence.
Bellamont and the great treachery of
Conduits,
Jade and Hall.
through which the Ideal Masters speak to their underlings and feed on their victims.
Vengeance festers in the sun.
The Ideal Masters' weakness is their insatiable hunger for pure souls. It's the reason for the Soul Cairn's existence, and the only leverage a necromancer has when bargaining with them.
Your enemies will soon know.
The ability to summon powerful undead guardians, as one would conjure an Atronak or Daedra. However, the majority of necromancers that are foolish enough to enter into a bargain with the Ideal Masters wind up here as harvested souls.
What prey awaits
Be
us?
careful, and keep my daughter safe.
Just kill those. I'm glad you're here. I don't think I could be doing this alone. Relieved, I think. All those things have been building for a while. You have no idea how long I wanted to say that to her. Look, I loved my father, but when he found that prophecy, that became his life. Everything else, even me and my mother, we just became clutter. I was close with my mother, but she just kept feeding me her opinions of him, and eventually I started believing them. The moment we gave ourselves to Moloch Ball, things got really icy between them. They were both drunk with power, and pulling in different directions. And then he found that prophecy, and that was it. It was. Honestly, it took me up until now to figure out that my mother was really just as bad as he was. He was obsessed with power. She was obsessed with seeing him fail. It was just so toxic. Maybe I could have seen this coming. We could all be better off now. I know that in my head, but I just can't help feeling bad about the way things are. Sorry, I know you're trying to help. Thanks. Anyway, we should keep moving. Where'd you come from?
Du aus!
managed to destroy all 3 keepers? Very impressive. Yes. Please follow me. Keep watch for Durnevere. With the prison's barrier down, he's almost certain to investigate.